The knock on the hotel room door came at 11:47 p.m. 3 sharp raps. Deliberate. Not the tentative knock of room service or a maid who'd gotten the wrong floor. Sammy Davis Jr. was sitting on the edge of the bed in his suite at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. He'd been staring at the phone for the past 20 minutes, wondering if he should call someone. Tell someone where he was, what was happening. But the instructions had been clear. Tell no one. Come alone. Wait. So he'd waited. The knock came again, same rhythm, same force. Sammy stood up, smoothed his suit jacket. He'd kept it on even though it was past midnight, and walked to the door. He looked through the peephole. A man in a dark suit and an earpiece stood in the hallway. Secret Service. Even through the distortion of the peephole, Sammy recognized the look, the posture, the way these men held themselves. Sammy opened the door. "Mr. Davis," the agent said, not a question. "Please come with me." "Where are we going?" "The president is waiting." It was February 8, 1961. John F. Kennedy had been president for exactly 19 days. The country was watching him. The world was watching him. Every move scrutinized. Every decision analyzed. The youngest president ever elected. Catholic. Charismatic. Carrying the weight of a nation that wanted to believe in something new. And tonight, at 1:45, he was meeting secretly with Sammy Davis Jr. The agent led Sammy down the hallway. Not to the elevator, to the service stairs. They descended 3 floors in silence, their footsteps echoing in the concrete stairwell. They emerged in a service corridor. Maintenance. Loading docks. The unsexy infrastructure of a luxury hotel. Another agent was waiting. He nodded to the first agent, then looked at Sammy. "I need to check you for recording devices." Sammy raised his arms without being asked. The agent patted him down quickly, professionally. Found nothing. "This way." They walked through a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only" and entered what looked like a hotel maintenance room. Shelves of cleaning supplies. Mops. Industrial-sized containers of detergent. But in the back, behind a false wall that swung open at the agent's touch, was another door. The agent knocked. Twice. A voice from inside. "Come in." The agent opened the door and gestured for Sammy to enter. Sammy stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The room was small. A converted storage space, maybe. There was a table. 2 chairs. A single lamp providing the only light. No windows. No phones. Nothing to indicate where they were or who was meeting. And sitting at the table wearing a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie, looking exhausted and somehow still impossibly young, was President John F. Kennedy. He stood when Sammy entered. "Mr. Davis, thank you for coming." "Mr. President." Sammy's mouth was dry. "Please, sit." Kennedy gestured to the empty chair. Sammy sat. Kennedy sat across from him. For a moment, neither man spoke. Kennedy looked at him. Really looked at him. Not the way most white men looked at Sammy, with curiosity or condescension, or that particular brand of liberal fascination. Kennedy looked at him the way you look at someone when you're trying to decide if you can trust them. "I'm going to be direct," Kennedy said. "Because we don't have much time and what I need to discuss with you can't be done through official channels." "I'm listening." "During the campaign, you endorsed me. You performed at rallies. You spoke to black communities on my behalf. You helped deliver votes I might not have gotten otherwise." "I believed in your message," Sammy said. "I know you did. And I'm grateful. But your support came at a cost to you personally. You lost work. You had venues cancel on you. You received death threats." Sammy nodded. All of that was true. And then, Kennedy continued, his voice quieter now, I uninvited you for my inauguration. The words hung in the air between them. Sammy had tried not to think about it, had tried to tell himself it didn't matter. That he understood, that politics was complicated. But it had hurt. More than he'd admitted to anyone. He'd campaigned for Kennedy, had put his reputation on the line, had taken heat from all sides. And when the moment came, when Kennedy was being sworn in as president, Sammy had been asked to stay away. Because he'd married a white woman, my Brit. Swedish actress. Beautiful. Kind. The woman he loved. And white. The political advisors had been clear. Having Sammy Davis Jr. and his white wife at the inauguration would create problems, would alienate Southern voters Kennedy needed, would become a distraction from the message. So Sammy had stayed home. And it had broken something inside him. Mr. President. Jack. Kennedy interrupted. Call me Jack. We're not in public. Sammy blinked. Jack, you didn't bring me here to apologize for the inauguration. No, I brought you here to ask you for something that might destroy my presidency, and I need to know if you're willing to help me anyway. Sammy felt his pulse quicken. Kennedy leaned forward. What I'm about to tell you is classified. If you repeat it to anyone, there will be consequences, legal consequences. Do you understand? I understand. I need you to do something for me, something dangerous, something that could get you killed. What? Kennedy took a breath. I need you to go to Cuba. Sammy's face went blank. Cuba? Yes. The Cuba that just had a revolution? The Cuba where Fidel Castro just took power? The Cuba that's now aligned with the Soviet Union? That Cuba. Sammy sat back in his chair. Why? Because Fidel Castro is a fan of yours. Kennedy explained it quickly, efficiently, the way a man speaks when he's thought through every word in advance. Castro was a problem. A communist problem, 90 miles from American shores. The previous administration had left Kennedy with plans for an invasion. Bay of Pigs. It was scheduled for April. But Kennedy was getting cold feet. The intelligence was shaky. The plan was half-baked. And the consequences of failure would be catastrophic. But he couldn't just cancel it. The hawks in his administration would eat him alive. The military would revolt. The Republicans would crucify him. He needed information. Real information. Not from CIA operatives or military intelligence, but from someone Castro might actually talk to. He's invited American entertainers before, Kennedy said. Jazz musicians, artists, people he sees as fellow revolutionaries in their own way, people who fought against oppression. And you think he'd talk to me? I think he might. You're famous. You're black. You face discrimination in America. You've spoken out about civil rights. In Castro's mind, you're a victim of American imperialism. He'd see you as sympathetic. And what am I supposed to do? Just ask him about his military capabilities? No. You're supposed to get close, perform for him if he asks, have drinks, listen, and report back what you observe, troop movements, Soviet advisors, mood in Havana, anything that might help me understand what we're really dealing with. Sammy stared at him. You want me to be a spy? I want you to be my eyes and ears in a place where I have none. And if I get caught? Kennedy's face was grim. Then I'll deny knowing you were there. The United States government will disavow any knowledge of your mission. You'll be on your own. Jesus Christ. I know what I'm asking, Kennedy said. And I know I have no right to ask it. Not after what I did to you. Not after I chose politics over loyalty. He looked Sammy in the eye. But I'm asking anyway. Because I don't have anyone else I can trust. Anyone else Castro might actually open up to. And because if this invasion happens and it goes wrong, we could be looking at World War III. Sammy's hands were shaking. He clasped them together under the table. Why should I do this? He asked quietly. You uninvited me from your inauguration. You let your advisors decide that my marriage was too controversial. That I was too controversial. Why should I risk my life for you? Kennedy nodded, like he'd expected the question, like he'd been waiting for it. You shouldn't, he said. If this was about me, you should tell me to go to hell. But it's not about me. He leaned forward again. It's about every person who'll die if we stumble into a war with the Soviet Union because I didn't have the information I needed to make the right call. It's about preventing something that could kill millions of people. And I'm asking you because you're one of the few people in the world who might be able to help me prevent it. Kennedy's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I'm not asking you to do this for me, Sammy. I'm asking you to do it in spite of me. The room was silent for a long time. Sammy thought about my Brit. About his career. About the death threats he'd already received just for marrying a white woman. About what it would mean to add suspected spy to the list of reasons people hated him. He thought about his father. About growing up in vaudeville. About every stage he'd ever stood on, and every person who'd told him he didn't belong there. He thought about the little black kids who looked at him and saw possibility. Saw proof that someone who looked like them could make it. And he thought about what those kids would inherit if the world went up in nuclear flames. If I do this, Sammy said slowly, I want something in return. Name it. Civil rights. I want your word that you'll fight for civil rights. Real fight. Not just pretty speeches. Legislation. Action. I want you to be the president you said you'd be. Kennedy was quiet. Then he nodded. You have my word. Your word means something? It will, Kennedy said, or I'll die trying to make it mean something. Sammy looked at him, at this young president with the weight of the world on his shoulders, at this man who'd hurt him and was now asking him to risk everything anyway. When do I leave? Sammy asked. 17 days later, Sammy Davis Jr. flew to Havana. Officially, he was there for a cultural exchange, a series of performances celebrating art and solidarity between peoples. Unofficially, he spent 3 evenings with Fidel Castro. They drank rum, smoked cigars, talked about revolution and music and the nature of freedom. Castro was warm, charismatic, genuinely interested in Sammy's life, his experiences with racism in America. And Sammy listened, watched, paid attention to everything. The Soviet advisors in the background, the military equipment being unloaded at the docks, the tension in the streets, the mood of the people. When he returned to the United States, he was debriefed by men who never gave their names. In a room that officially didn't exist, he told them everything he'd seen. And 3 weeks later, President Kennedy canceled the Bay of Pigs invasion. He didn't cancel it entirely. The political pressure was too great, but he scaled it back, changed the parameters, made decisions based in part on intelligence that had come from a one-eyed entertainer who'd spent 3 nights drinking with a dictator. The invasion still happened. And it was still a disaster. But it was a smaller disaster than it might have been. And the nuclear war that some feared? It didn't happen. Not then, anyway. Sammy Davis Jr. never spoke publicly about his trip to Cuba, never told anyone what he'd really been doing there, never claimed credit or sought recognition, and Kennedy never publicly acknowledged what Sammy had done. But 2 months later, Sammy received an envelope delivered by courier. Inside was a handwritten note on White House stationery. Sammy, you did something very few people would have been brave enough to do. And you did it even though I didn't deserve your help. I won't forget that. And I'll keep my promise. Thank you. Jack. Kennedy did keep his promise. In June 1963, he gave a televised address calling civil rights a moral issue. He introduced legislation that would eventually become the Civil Rights Act. 5 months later, he was dead. In 1987, 2 years before Sammy died, a journalist asked him about his relationship with JFK. You campaigned for him, but you weren't at the inauguration, the journalist said. Did that hurt? Sammy was quiet for a moment. It hurt at the time, he finally said. But I understood. Politics is complicated, and sometimes you have to make hard choices. Do you regret supporting him? Sammy smiled. A sad smile. No. Because despite everything, he tried to do the right thing. And sometimes that's all you can ask of someone. That they try. The journalist pressed. But surely you must have felt betrayed. Listen, Sammy interrupted gently. Jack Kennedy wasn't perfect, but he was trying to navigate an impossible situation. And when it mattered, when he needed help, he asked me. And I helped him. Because that's what you do. You help when you can, even when it costs you. What did you help him with? Sammy's smile widened slightly. That's between me and Jack. And he never said another word about it.